Hello and Merry Christmas and welcome to a special episode of GB Reviews where today I'm not only going to be taking a look at one game, oh no, I'm going to go through a marathon of games here today in celebration of it being 19 years ago since I first got a PlayStation system. I know 19 sounds like an odd number, but I have an explanation for this, bear with me. I originally had this to be a celebration of 20 years, but I had already sculpted a chunk of this video already before I realised that it actually wasn't 20 years ago, since one of the games in this video was created in 1998, so it was actually 19 years ago that I got a PS1, but I said I'll still do the video anyway. So the games I have picked out to go through are the games I got packed with my first ever PlayStation. So the first game I'm going to be looking at is Premier Manager 98. Published by Gremlin Interactive in 1997, this was the fourth entry in the now non-existent Premier Manager series of football management games. At the time, I had never heard of these kind of games, so I was very confused when I first tried it out. I often wondered why I couldn't control the players, the menus confused me, and I never understood why I couldn't come back and continue my progress like I could on FIFA 96 for the Mega Drive. After a few attempts, it clicked. I could only pick a club and watch them play. I had no idea how to do any tactics, or pretty much anything that I would probably know a lot of nowadays. Looking back at it now, I get it. After playing Football Manager from 2009 right through to 2015, and being a Celtic fan pretty much my whole life, this game is fairly easy to understand if you're even slightly interested in this genre. The game takes its visuals and mechanics from that of the Actua football series, another football franchise which was developed by the same company but no longer exists either. Graphically, it's not that much to look at. And I'm not just saying this because it's the end of 2017 and this was made in 1997, I mean there were other games out there that looked a ton better than this. Even FIFA 98 had decent visuals, but really, if the main focus is to manage the team and look for a win literally on paper, then I suppose graphics shouldn't be something to dwell on. I mean, Football Manager didn't even have 3D graphics until the start of the 2010s, and even those visuals look horrendous. I suppose it's not a big deal, so no more need to hinder on it. The commentary during matches is provided by Martin Tyler, who has now been the main commentator for the FIFA series since 2007, so it was weird to hear his voice in this game.
It's intercepted and he's just wide on the near post. One down the line, everything else to his left, and it comes through right in the middle. Brilliant. Well dispatched. Lovely diagonal ball, far right on the edge of the area. Penalty.
The music is okay. Back in the day I found it really monotonous and boring, especially when hearing the same song in the menus over and over. So musically it's fine, it's there, nothing to write home about really. Navigating the menus was really annoying and awkward when I first played this game, but now I can really see why. This game would probably be more suited on PC than the PS1, but I was still able to pick it up fairly easy this time round. I would have preferred snapping through the menus all the time, but again, it's not that convoluted. All in all, this is just your typical football management style of game, and I did enjoy it for a brief moment of time. But all I really wanted was a proper football game to actually play. This was an okay introduction to a management sim, but it wasn't what I really wanted as an 8-year-old. I know I sound ungrateful, but I'll be honest, I did turn it on multiple times, and I even still have the disc, so it does hold sentimental value if that's any consolation. Oh, I almost forgot one thing I hated about Premier Manager 98. So imagine this. I've gotten my team to the final day of the season, I'm one match away, I'm feeling tired, so I better save the game and I'll continue it tomorrow. What? This game takes up the full capacity of a single memory card? Now that I think of it, this was one of few reasons why I never really went back to the game that often. Because I only had 2 memory cards and both got used a lot, so I pretty much never had the chance to save my progress on this game. This was a major complaint by many owners of this game back in the day, and I remember it putting me in a bad mood at least once. It's okay, once I got FIFA 99 a year later, I don't think I ever played Premier Manager 98 for a long time after that. It's a good game, even today, but I think its time has came and gone. If I want to play a retro football management sim, I'll play Championship Manager or LMA. I doubt I'll ever come back to this. Overall, Premier Manager 98 is probably good for those that have played it in the past and are looking for a nostalgia fix. But for me, it only brings back those days of being bored out of my mind, wishing I could actively participate in the matches I had to watch. I guess you could say I was too young and naive to understand, so there's that. But that's Premier Manager 98. It's a good nostalgia trip, but not something I would sink hours into anytime soon. The next game I'm going to be taking a look at is Ridge Racer Revolution. Released in 1995 in Japan and 1996 in the West, Ridge Racer Revolution is an arcade racing game that serves as the console follow-up to the original Ridge Racer on the same platform. In fact, it's almost a complete and utter clone of the original. I don't even really know what the differences are apart from 3 new tracks. Well, 1 track with 3 different routes to select from. And since I never really sat down to play the original, I can't give a true comparison between the two. So I'm just going to look at Ridge Racer Revolution on its own. But I can say this. The graphics between the original and this one are the exact same, right down to 2 of the cars that you drive. So really, this isn't a true sequel to the original. That honour belongs to Ridge Racer 2 in the arcades, and this is probably just an update of the original, hence the name I suppose. The game allows you to customise your race to your liking, including which track you want to race on, which car you want to drive, and which music you want to listen to while you race. It's all catered to your preference, but you can complete every track on every difficulty level if you want. I never went this far as I personally never actually liked this game. I didn't like how the cars handled. I also hated that every time you hit a wall, you would almost come to a complete stop, which really irritated me beyond belief at the time. Nowadays it's pretty okay to pick up and play, but I played so much better racing games than this at the time. I also didn't realise that you could drift in this game, and maybe that's why I didn't do so good playing it as a child. I'm not trying to knock it, I can see the appeal these games have. I guess I'm just not a Ridge Racer fan, and never was. I still have the disc at least. But there is one racing game I did enjoy, that came with my first bundle of games, and that was V-Rally. This game had a ridiculous number of different names for its title, so it's hard for me to say what the real name of the game is even called. Over here in Europe, it's called V-Rally 97 Championship Edition. Then, when it went to Silver Platinum, it was retitled as V-Rally Championship Edition, obviously dropping the 97 since it came out afterwards. In North America, it was known as Need for Speed V-Rally due to the fact that Electronic Arts acquired the publishing rights in order to boost sales. The PC version of the game is called V-Rally Multiplayer Championship Edition, with a later version being called V-Rally Edition 99. This was also the name for the Nintendo 64 and Game Boy Color versions. I have no idea why the names were changed so many times. I mean, why not just call it V-Rally? That's what I called it, and that's what it remains to be called. It was developed and published by Infogrames Multimedia on the PlayStation in Europe, with EA publishing it in America and Spike in Japan, and Ocean Software for the Game Boy. Jesus Christ, I'll spend more time talking about its name and various publishers before getting to the actual game. I digress, I'll continue. This was also a first for me, the first rally game I ever played. The game gives you 3 game modes to play on: Arcade, Championship and Time Trial. Arcade mode has 3 different sub-modes: easy, medium and hard, with each mode increasing the number of tracks you play on the higher the difficulty you go. Then there's Championship mode, which lets you pick a car and race on different tracks with 3 different stages of each track represented by conditions such as rain, snow, storms, etc. You then have to come in first place in each of these races in order to win. Simple as that. Time Trial also allows you to do exactly that, and is funnily the more proper way to play a rally game, if anything, because the other 2 game modes put you against 3 other races at the same time, which is really not how rally races are done, but this is an arcade racer so it gets a pass. There are a good few cars to select in this game, and they all differ in speed, acceleration and handling, not to mention the type of drive. My favourite car in the game is quite simply the Mitsubishi Lancer Evolution. The stages are quite varied as well, such as Indonesia, French Alps and the English countryside, and even an African safari track. In terms of gameplay, I have to admit the general controls of this game are not easy. The cars can be very sensitive, and there is a ton of oversteering in this game, and you can spin out of control very easily. It takes a bit of getting used to, and jumping back into this game for the first time in so long, I'm not as good as I used to be, especially after playing so many other racers that have come out in the past 10 years. Visually, I thought the game looked very good, even back then. The rain effects were done very well, and I also love how the car shines its headlights in front during a night track. Each track looks and feels different as a result. I used to absolutely love this game when I had it, and I fully believe it stands up to this day. And if you're a racing fan with a PS1, PS2 or indeed a PS3, I say maybe buy it and try it out. It's one of my favourite games on the PS1, and once again, I still own the disc. And the next game I'm going to be taking a look at is a lengthy one, because this is a wrestling game that I know inside out. So this is Warzone for the PS1. I have technically already reviewed this game. I regard it as a lost episode of my original Classics review series because WWE struck the video down for copyright infringement, and the video was made unavailable to watch as a result. And since I lost the original project, I never really got to do a re-review until now. So I'm hoping that I can get away with it this time. So here we go. WWF Warzone was published by Acclaim Entertainment in 1998 on the Game Boy, PS1 and Nintendo 64, with the Game Boy version coming out first, would you believe? This was the first wrestling game I ever owned and was probably my introduction to WWF in general. Maybe this belongs to WWF Royal Rumble on the Super Nintendo, I cannot fully remember that game, but this at least served as my introduction to the likes of Stone Cold Steve Austin and Triple H, as well as Mankind and Bret Hart and even Kane. Most, if not all of these wrestlers I first heard of from this game. Warzone had a few modes under its, well, belt. There is Exhibition mode, which is essentially pick a match type, a wrestler, and then play. The real meat of the game, and one that encouraged replayability, was the WWF Challenge mode. In this mode, the player selects a wrestler of their choice and is then shown at the bottom of a pyramid-like ranking system represented by a group of TV monitors with portraits of potential opponents within them. If you win a match, you can move up one rank, and losing a match will drop you a place. Every now and then you will receive a challenge from a previously defeated opponent, and this will commence what is known as a grudge match. This rematch will mostly comprise of a special stipulation in order to differ from the original match you had, such as a cage match, a weapons match, among others. Once you reach the top of the pyramid, you now have to defeat the WWF champion, whomever that may be at that point, and once you win, you can then sit atop the ranks and defend the title against anyone who challenges you. Winning the WWF title with a particular wrestler can also unlock certain secrets such as hidden wrestlers, costumes, cheats, and even the ability to create a female wrestler from the Create a Player feature. We'll get to that momentarily, but these unlockables are what keeps the player returning and encourages said player to try out different wrestlers. For example, If you win the title with Goldust, you unlock extra costumes for Goldust. If you win it with Mankind, you unlock the ability to play as his two other alter egos, Cactus Jack and Dude Love, and there are many, many more. As previously mentioned, there is also a create a player mode, which allows you to create your own wrestler pretty much from scratch. You can edit his face, skin colour, skin type, beard, mask, tattoo, clothing, colour of clothing, accessories such as earrings, gloves, change his name, change his entrance music for challenge mode, change his weight. You can even pick different movesets which are preset to different current wrestlers in the game. You can save as many custom wrestlers as your memory card can hold. If you want to create a female wrestler, you will have to beat the game with either Triple H or Shawn Michaels. I don't think anything different happens within the create a player mode if you use a created female, in that I think you can only change the gender and not the outfits you put on them, but I could be wrong. I never got to unlock this feature when I originally played the game, as I either didn't know about it or was terrible at the game. The audio is pretty decent for its time, nothing outrageously spectacular, but it was okay. Whenever you make contact with your opponent, that opponent will wail in pain, and each wail is respective of that particular wrestler. So if you hit Mankind and he squeals, you know it's Mankind that's squealing. However, The Undertaker and Kane do the exact same wail, which is weird, especially for Kane, who never uttered a whisper on TV at that time. Why they couldn't just leave him silent, I've no idea. The commentary is provided by Vince McMahon and Jim Ross, and it was alright.
Welcome to the World Wrestling Federation, the revolutionary force in sports entertainment. I'm Vince McMahon. And I'm good old JR. What a matchup this will be.
At the time, I thought it was so cool that they called out almost any move you would pull off. Also, just before the start of each match, the commentators will give a brief description of the wrestlers in the ring before the bell goes off, and during challenge mode they do the same thing as the wrestler makes their respective entrance from the ramp.
Mankind is one frightening individual, a most deranged individual indeed.
Speaking of entrances, all wrestlers have the real entrance songs they would have had back in the time this game was in development. The crowd is also pretty well done in a fairly unique way, in that they are a pretty useful tool within a match. They are tied to your momentum, which is represented by the colour of the text on the wrestler's name. And this will chop and change as the match progresses, with the health bar slowly decreasing and turning more red the more a wrestler is beat up. If a wrestler repeats the same move over and over, the crowd will begin to boo him and hand over momentum to the opponent. If you vary your moves and gain maximum momentum, the crowd will begin to chant your wrestler's name, and as a result, you will have a multiplier added to your attacks, and this will happen for the duration of these chants.
What's up with this crowd? Austin has worked him into a frenzy. Owen Hart is out on his feet. He's wide open. Owen Hart isn't out of this match yet. Hey, hook it up. Off the rope.
In hindsight, this was a pretty innovative feature. Now let's talk about the controls. They're a bit divisive to say the least. Let me explain. So the basic movesets are square to kick, triangle to punch, X to block, and circle to grapple. These are simple to pull off, but the real challenge is when you are actually in grapple mode. Once you hit grapple, you are then in a collar and elbow tie-up position, and you now have to pull off a move. How do you do this? Well, if it's your first time playing, you're not going to have a bloody clue. So what do? You pause the game, go to the move list, and there's the problem. Each move can be done by inputting a sequence of buttons. Some people, like myself, got used to these controls and can now do them pretty easily without worrying about looking at the move list. But most others hated it, and is one of a few reasons why a lot of people hated this game and its successors. Pulling off moves in this game was regarded as awkward and difficult. I suppose this is why games like No Mercy on the N64 was getting such high praise, as it was more simplified than the moves you could do, as it was published by THQ, the guys that would eventually go on to make the incredibly popular and successful WWF SmackDown series, which required no convoluted button combinations and was straightforward, fast and responsive. But I digress. Warzone also allowed players to pull off a finisher maneuver if the opponent's health bar was in the red. How do you pull off a finisher move? Oh, well, that's easy, isn't it? Just look at the move list and... well, no, not exactly. You had to find out how to do the finisher move yourself. The manual of the game did provide a couple of finisher moves for you to pull off and how to do them, but that was it. You had to go by word of mouth, or at the time, if you were rich enough, use the internet. This problem was rectified in WWF Attitude in a way because the finisher moves were now visible in the move list and there was no more mashing and hoping to find out. Regardless, the method used to pull off moves in this game was indeed a pain in the backside, but since this was my first wrestling game, I didn't know any better, so I had to learn how to do it this way, and I got good at it. So let's talk about the visuals briefly. In regards to presentation, it is a pretty decent looking wrestling game. There are pyrotechnics for wrestler entrances, flash photography, and the very flat looking crowd that was very common in early PlayStation sports titles, and there was a big Titantron that you would never see throughout the duration of the match. The wrestlers themselves look brilliant. They have appeared to have gotten their faces down to a T. This bridges over to me talking about the animations and, well, they're a bit stiff to say the least. Some of the moves look okay, but watching a wrestler move around the ring was a bit comical at times. No matter who you pick, all the wrestlers will walk around with their jukes up, and they will all stand with the same stance save for two. Undertaker and Kane, who will stand relatively still, slowly swaying left and right. It was very weird to look at the time, but I suppose the limitations you had back then, you had to deal with it. As I said earlier, there are various different stipulations in this game, such as weapons matches, which is the same as a regular match with the only difference being the abundance of random weapons in the ring, and I think you could pin your opponent outside, I'm not sure. Then there's the cage match, which I personally hated. You have to climb over the cage to go on the outside floor if you want to win, and this is not as easy as it sounds. You have to literally batter your opponent until he cannot stand if you want even a chance of winning, because the speed in which a wrestler climbs up that cage is painful to watch. Not only does he take ages to climb it, but he will also take his time standing up straight and turning around. Only when the animation of the wrestler commences climb out do you know for certain that you have won, because if you even get to the tip of that cage and your opponent reaches his feet, consider yourself fucked and trying again, because he will shake that cage and you're back to square one. Really tedious match type, made even worse by the fact that you cannot pin your opponent inside it. I knew for certain that they did this on TV, but I'm not sure when the pinfall inside the cage was allowed. In any case, it was really annoying. There is also your typical tag team matches and a triple threat and fatal 4-way, which is basically 3-man and 4-man match types respectively. If you have more than 2 players playing, you can also do a battle royale, which is an elimination style of match in which the last man standing wins. There is also tornado tag matches, similar to the regular tag team matches, only all 4 wrestlers can be in the ring at the same time with no tags required. Some of these match types can only be played with a certain number of players, so I personally didn't get to try all of these game modes, especially Battle Royale. And that was Warzone for the PlayStation. It was a good wrestling game for me at the time, and to be honest, it isn't that bad even now. It hasn't aged particularly well, that's for sure, but for a bit of nostalgia, it's not half bad. And yep, I still have the game in its box and all. Next up on this list is the demo disc that came bundled with my PlayStation, and I'm only going to go through this incredibly briefly. If you weren't up to scratch with the original PlayStation and PS2 growing up, then you must know these demo discs were everywhere. The most popular of them being the Demo 1 discs, with various versions being made as the months or years went on. The demo disc I got had games that were being developed between the latter half of 1997 and the middle of 1998. So the games I got to play were Tekken 3, Medieval, Cooler World and Gran Turismo. There were also various different video clips to look at, such as the trailer for Metal Gear Solid, which was the first time I ever seen this game, and I did not like the look of it at the time. Oh boy, do I regret saying that. There was also a trailer for the Spice Girls video game. Oh god. Moving on. There was also trailers for Crash Bandicoot 3 and Spyro the Dragon. Let's take a very quick look at the playable demos. On Tekken 3 you had the option to choose one of two characters, Eddie Gordo and Ling Xiaoyu. And your opponents always comprised of either of those two or Paul Phoenix and Lei Wulong. This was my first introduction to the Tekken series, and I instantly fell in love with this game. This was the first Tekken game I would eventually own, and I have this demo to thank for it. It quickly became my all-time favourite fighting game on the PS1. It holds that much sentimental value to me that I eventually got a tattoo which shows the same scar that Jin Kazama has in this game. I've played Tekken 1 and 2 since, but personally, Tekken 3 is the best of that initial trilogy. In Gran Turismo, I think you could only choose one track to race on and only a small handful of cars to choose from, and you race one race before the demo ends. I honestly can't remember it that much, but this was another game from this demo I eventually got to own. Medieval was a ton of fun. You could play as a skeletal zombie and you go around fending off other zombies in a graveyard, and to be honest, this was a pretty lengthy demo. You could play this right up to the end of the first level if I'm not mistaken. Medieval was great fun and I still haven't owned it yet. I really should pick that game up one day. Cooler World was an odd one. It's a puzzle game that puts you in control of a beach ball, and the objective is to navigate the floating platforms and grab a key of some sort to finish the level. Cute game, another one I really didn't get to buy, but still not too bad. And that was pretty much the entirety of the Demo 1 disc that I owned, which I also still have. And now, onto the one that I have deliberately saved for last place. So much so that I'm actually going to leave it off for its own proper review. So, I guess this is the end of this marathon. I will end it on the next video, which will be my review of Heart of Darkness. This game started off as my least liked game on the system to probably being one of my favourite platformers ever. It was hard as shit, stylish, gorgeous, and just amazing fun, and I will see you on the next episode of GB Reviews where I will take a better look at it. Sorry for the deception, but this game does indeed deserve its own video, so I won't leave it too long before I have it up here on YouTube. With that said, thanks very much for sitting through this monster of a video with me. I haven't done anything like this before, so this was a first for me, so if I was a little bit out of place or rusty or anything like that, I apologise. I will improve in future videos. But that's that. Thanks for watching this video. This has been Gamerboy talking to you on GB Gaming, where video games come first. As always, if you enjoyed the video, maybe hit the like button, and if you want to get notified on when Heart of Darkness will arrive, hit the subscribe button if you want. No pressure, I do these videos for my own enjoyment, and I'm only happy to get anything in return, even if it's a one-worded comment like cool, or even a shite one like this sucks. I'm just happy I get to do these videos. Once again, thanks for watching, and have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.